Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to episode 37 of Monorail Memoirs. This week, how to do Disney without kids. Firstly, amazing. It's fantastic. I love it. Probably shouldn't say that, but still. Lauren, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. I'm very much looking forward to this week's topic because it's something that
Yeah.
I have a little bit of experience in. The last 4 or 5 or 6 visits has been either me solo, me with the wife, or me with the wider family. I want to start by saying this: Disney is so different without children, and by extension, it's very different with children. Lauren, I'm sure that you will think that you've got an awful lot of experience now in how to do Disney with children. So, what do you think of some of the big expectation differences between not having children and having children at Disney?
Not having children, go at your pace. Having children, go at their
Mm.
pace. That is
Mm.
my biggest takeaway.
It's a completely different experience, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And let's be clear that it's not that one is right or wrong, but my goodness, do I enjoy just cutting about the two of us. I think one of the things I want to talk about to start with is how the parks are different. And specifically, I think the park that is the most different is Epcot. And the reason Epcot is the most different is you think about the food, you think about the drinks, drinking around the world. You can't really do that when you've got a couple of tykes following you around. But I also think that because you can take things at a slower pace, the World Showcase becomes a bigger attraction, partly for the food and drinking, as mentioned. But the World Showcase becomes a bigger attraction when you don't have children.
Absolutely. You can take it all in. You can look at the little intricacies in Morocco, for example, because that is such an intricate area.
Mm,
Whereas the children, they quite rightly so think, well, where's the fun? Where's the magic in
mm,
this section?
mm.
And they might not be into history or, kind of geography of different countries and their traditions and stuff like that. And yes, you can do like little jaunts through, but you won't really immerse yourself within that kind of area with them going, I want to do Frozen, or I want to go and do Test Track again, or something like that, because they're there for the rides, they're there for the thrills and stuff like that.
But I also think that if we follow that logic onto Hollywood Studios has an awful lot of rides that little children especially can't do. You think of, Rise of the Resistance, you think of Tower of Terror, Rock and Roller Coaster, etc. So I think I do think that changes things because last time you did Hollywood Studios, did you have to do rider swap or?
We did, yeah. So the last two times that we've been with. So my son was 18 months old the first time,
Uh-huh.
and then we had him just over 3, and her, my daughter, at around kind of 1 year old to the
Mhm.
18 months kind of range. So yeah, rider swap, we had to use that quite a bit.
And explain to our viewers what rider swap actually is.
So it is fantastic, and especially if you go in with more than one adult as well. So, for example, we had 4 adults and 2 children.
Sorry, time out. More than one adult? Well, yeah, because otherwise you're by
More than
yourself.
what? More than one other adult.
Oh, right, okay. So more than two adults, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
You
carry on.
are going, if you are going with more than one adult,
Right,
you are
okay.
anyway. 2+ adults. It's great. It's better with more adults
Mhm.
because so when you do the rider swap for us, it worked out whereby 2 adults could queue for the ride and two adults to 2 children ratio was still there. So you just kind of had one buddy to look after rather than
Mhm.
kind of keeping a swarm of them together. So we could go and do the shops and stuff like that while those two did the queue. So say it was for Tower of Terror and it was a 50-minute wait, they would wait the 50 minutes for Tower of Terror. They would then come off the ride, and on our magic bands, the ones that have waited with the children, has a lightning lane on it for free
Mhm. Mhm.
because you've waited with the children. So then you get 2 lightning lanes per rider swap. So because we had 2 people going in, we could have another 2 people kind of going after that. So then we didn't wait for them Tower of Terror. We just
Mhm.
continued straight through, did the the TV room bit, and then
Mhm.
obviously went through the boiler room queue. But it meant that it was kind of like a 15-minute occasion rather than an hour occasion,
And,
which
and
really, really helps.
yeah, and so you have to go up to the staff at the start and say,
You do.
look, these two are going on. we want to ride a swap because we've got these ones. Tap your card, magic band, wallet, whatever,
Yeah.
and that's what takes you. So then when you come back, is there a? Do you know if there's a time limit on it? If there's a, you have to use it within a certain amount of time, or
I don't actually know, but I know you can't stack them. So
okay.
you can't get one for Tower of Terror, for example, and then
Mhm.
as soon as they come off Tower of Terror, you do Rock and Roller Coaster. You can't have two. You
Got
can
it.
only do one at a time.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. But I do think that, to come back to the original point, Hollywood Studios doesn't have a lot for children in the way that the way that, especially, let's be honest, Magic Kingdom does. Magic Kingdom is the park for children. I know we covered this a couple of weeks ago, but Magic Kingdom is the primary park for children, not least because of height requirements, but the amount of attractions and the fact that it does feel more magical.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, especially the parades and things like that as well.
Yeah, and moving away from the parks for a second, I think one of the ways in which doing Disney without children changes things is the hotels feel like part of the vacation now. And what I mean by that is, if you're staying in All Stars, for example, or any of the All Stars, there's always a lot of children there because A, it's the most reasonably priced value resort, but B, whenever there's big sport events on at ESPN Wild World of Sports, like cheer competitions, baseball, football, whatever, that's where everybody stays. And as a result, it means it's a very child intensive area. Whereas when we stayed at Grand Floridian in January, well, it's the Grand Floridian. I always, my view of success in life was always when I could spend 2 weeks in the Grand Floridian off my own dime, that's when I've made it. Like, whatever made it means, but like that was, I remember being 13 or 14, standing over the balcony at the Grand Floridian, looking down to the main lobby saying, that's the aim. I haven't got there yet, but I absolutely will do. And I'm so excited. But the point is that because the Grand Floridian is more, let's call it adult friendly, just because of the themes and what have you, I do think that it makes part of the vacation. And actually, when my wife and I were discussing this episode before coming on, one of the things she said was, well, yeah, you can have just midday naps, and you can, I think going back to your resort for a midday nap is such a win.
Yeah, and it's a nap not for your child, it's a nap for you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think another thing that's also a massive consideration is Disney Springs. You know, I think that if you're going to do a Disney Springs day or a half a day or something, the children are going to want to go into the world of Disney, whereas you might want to go into some of the more designer shops, like there is a Vera Bradley or, stuff like that. I think that there is that big change in kind of Lego store and world of Disney, as opposed to maybe the eateries or the designer shops. It is a very different experience.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I do think that, as you alluded to, Disney Springs is heavy on sort of food and dining that's really not aimed towards children. And that logic expands beyond just Disney Springs, but there's a lot of signature dining locations that are just not designed for children. I think about Teppanyado in the Japan Pavilion. If my child was below the age of 10, I just don't think there'd be anything there for them. You think about truly signature dining pieces such as Victoria and Albert's, there will not be any children allowed in there. And so I think food and drink become a much bigger part of a Disney trip without children. And that's one of the reasons why I think Epcot transforms the most, because you can just eat and drink and, do what you want, and you're not stuck to meal times, and you don't have to worry about, is there something on the menu for the little ones? Because whenever you do Disney with children, most of the eateries that you engage in will be either buffet style or they'll be character dining, which costs money in itself. But also, let's face it, I've never gone to a character dining thing and gone, oh, I'm here for the food.
No, absolutely not. I mean, the food is good. Don't get me wrong. It is good, but again, it is just buffet food.
Yeah, exactly.
And buffet food can only be so good because it's sat there.
That's true. That's true. One of the things that I think you can afford to skip when you don't have children is things like those meals, like the character dining, that don't really, they're not aimed for you. They're aimed for children. But that's just one of the things. I also think the thing that you can save the most time on, apart from just the logistics of having to move around, is you don't actually have to do character meet and greets.
Yeah, that is very true. We did spend, I think the last time that we went, we did spend a heck of a lot of time in character meet and greet queues. But I mean, I'm a parent. I love seeing the joy in their eyes. And people say to me, you know, when I take my children, especially with the ages that I took them, people say, well, they're never going to remember that. No, but I do. And that's what I like. You know, that kind of brought a different side of Disney to me. You know, I've been used to being going as a young adult, you know, very kind of independent. Mum and dad would just kind of be like, go on, kids, you know, like, you know where you're going, it's fine, you know, you can kind of go off and what have you, you know, when we were like 15, 16 and we thought we were dead cool, you know, like on our own in the parks and stuff.
I was cool.
But going with children does definitely show a different light to it. But as you say, you're waiting around for a lot of things that you would not wait around for as an adult.
I do think that if somebody was skeptical about going to Disney, I think I would insist their first trip was without children.
Oh, interesting.
And the reason I say that is because you can experience so much more in a more condensed time frame. If you try to do a first time trip to Disney for 4 days with children, forget it.
Impossible. Yeah.
Well, exactly. Whereas, you know, and I know we discussed this last week, but I was thinking about it afterwards. If you did an adults only trip, so it's the first time you're going, there's 2 of you, you do 4 days, I think that you could get a lot more out of it than you could than if you went with children.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that is quite true because, I mean, I know that it isn't Florida and that's kind of what our content is usually about, but obviously I've been to Paris quite a few times and I remember going with was then my fiance and now husband in I think it was kind of around 2017-ish, 2016, 2017, and both of us, we smashed out both parks and we didn't have any issue for the day. You know, we managed to smash it out in the day. Whereas when we've just recently been in October and April with our children, it was a very different story. And we went for a few days and we still didn't do some things.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I do think it becomes a lot more limiting, but that's just what you accept when there's little ones involved because you're doing it in part for them as well.
Yeah.
So I think if you're gonna do Disney without kids, you need to focus on the food and drink. Absolutely, it does mean that you can sort of slow down and speed up however you want. You know, you can take a stroll down Main Street, you can walk around the World Showcase, or you can go and hit as many of those big rides at whatever time of the day that you think is suitable for you, and you can skip those character meet and greets that take so long.
And you can also utilize Lightning Lane probably a lot better because you've got less people to buy it for, so it is cheap that way. But also, if you're going as a couple, it is something you can experience together with the Lightning Lane, and you can really maximize on that because you don't have to factor in naps or breaks or grouchiness, you know, tiredness, hangriness. I mean, hangriness maybe sometimes with adults, but you know what I mean. You know, you can kind of power through those feelings sometimes as an adult, whereas with a child, if they ain't happy, they ain't happy. You need to deal with it.
No, actually, one of the best pieces of advice I was given by somebody that I work with, Johan, he said, "Don't try and make a happy child happier." Oh, that's a great shout.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they're happy, just leave them to it. On that wholesome note, I will say thank you very much for attending this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. And until then, please stand clear of the doors. Bye, everybody.
Bye.